Hey, what's going on, everybody? Andrew here, back for our build review show. It is Friday, May 2nd of 2025. And on this show, we bring users builds up live on stream, giving them personalized feedback and advice about things I think they can do differently in their builds to help them improve their post-contest sim ROIs, help them submit and build stronger lineups for their contests. So we do this show every week, Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you ever want to get signed up for a show, two ways to do so. Number one, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second way, post it live or post it in the office hours channel, actually, and just let me know what date, sport, site, and slate you want reviewed. I'll add you to the list for the next show. So that'll look something like, hey, Andrew, can you review my NBA main slate lineups on DraftKings for April 30th? And you give me that information. That should be all I need. If I need anything else, I will follow up with you. But for today's show, we do have 5 people signed up. A nice full list of reviews on deck here. So why don't we just jump right in? First one's going to be for Summy, and this one will be for the MLB main slate on April 26th. So let's get this up on screen. All right, cool. So, oops, not the one I want. I want this one. All right, so get a start in the contest tab, as always here. And contest selection looks good. Everything $3 or under. We see a nice balance, single entries, 3 maxes, entering less than the max in the mini max, just being bankroll conscious. This all looks really, really good. Let's look at the mini max, probably best. Most entries in this contest, highest prize pool, same number of entries as the other contests. So this one should be a fine one to look at. Let's go to users. And we're going to go to people who entered greater than or equal to 20. And we're going to reset these to default, sort by sim ROI. Hey, this is pretty cool, right? So Summy here, highest sim ROIer. Interesting. Okay, broke even on the slate. So literally broke even, $0 profit, 0% ROI. The 0 profit was confusing me. I thought this was like total winnings, but it wasn't. There's a different winnings column, so it's kind of throwing me off. But broke even in this contest, highest sim ROIer here at 13%, only 4 sim ROIers in double digits. And let's just look at some of the lineup characteristics. So this was a 9 game slate. Average salaries pushing 49.6. So we talked about this, like bumping up minimum salary from the default of like 48K to like 49K on some of these like 6 or more game slates, like from kind of what we've seen here in flashback. So high average salary is good. Even though they have the high average salary, sim average score is still 100. This seems to be like within the range here. It seems like there's a range of like 98 to like 106. We see this, I call it like a salary floor range. Like, hey, your salary can't be too low, but it doesn't have to be the highest. It just kind of needs to be within like a certain kind of range, right? We saw this a lot for NFL. Be like, okay, if your lineups were like between 130 and 135, they tended to grade out pretty well. But if you were at like 128, 127, it was just like a little bit low. That range is a little bit smaller for something like NFL, and it looks to be a little bit bigger for like a correlative sport like MLB here. So the range here is like 98 to like 106, and Summy's like right at 100. So right there, perfectly fine. Now, probably gonna not learn a bunch more here, but let's go into the build. So, okay, so Summy's on ultimate. So I'm just looking at the game times. Late swap is less important in MLB, but I do think you can get some edge from it here. So, just looking at like the game times, right? These are all Pacific time. So it's like 10 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 p.m. and then 4 games at 1 p.m., right? So almost half of the slate got kicked off at this 1 p.m. window where, 2 games probably over, 1 game probably, 2 games over, 2 games like later innings, 6th, 7th probably, and then 1 game kind of early. I think you probably could have done a late swap before these afternoon games kicked off to account for like what had happened in the first 2 games and then what had happened so far in the 11 a.m. games. I talk about like late swap in MLB from the perspective of like, you want to wait until there's actionable information to swap. I personally think a swap would have been good before these games kicked off. So consider that. It's always going to kind of depend on like the windows and things like that. It's not always like cut and dry, but think about it from like that lens of like, hey, has anything significant kind of happened where, maybe, Detroit had like a low team total. Maybe the pitcher on Baltimore, I think Corbin Burns is on Baltimore. Maybe it was Corbin Burns and, maybe he didn't end up pitching well and he was chalky. That's going to have a big impact on like what lineups are kind of viable. Maybe it's, the 3rd inning in Cincinnati, Colorado, but the Reds already scored 5 runs and have 2 home runs, right? Like, okay, that's going to be really important too, right? So those are like kind of things you want to be on the lookout for. So just consider that. Not to say you did anything wrong, but I'm just trying to find, ways and ideas to help you make your lineups, that much better. But you're already doing a great job of that, being, highest sim ROI here. Food for thought. All right, jump into a build. Lineups were built about 20 minutes prior to lock. Probably waited for all these lineups to be released. That's totally cool. They did boost their min salary. So notice, we saw where their min salary was. It looks like they did boost it. So that's a takeaway there. Probably default sliders, no filters, no rules. Nothing in the all tab for exposures. Nothing in pitchers. Nothing in batters. Nothing in team stacks. Pretty hands off. Stack exposures. Oh, so this is interesting, right? Used 100% 5-2s. It's kind of it's aggressive, right? But it's clearly working in the post contest. And I'm not suggesting everybody go and like only play 5-2s, but like that is like an interesting thing to find out, right? So interesting how they're only playing 5-2s. Nothing with game stack or postponement risk. Okay, we go to lineups. Okay, using autofill, using 6 uniques for all the 20 max, or using 6 uniques across the board here, right? So that seems fine. Using unique rank, using ROI, sorting by prize pool, got projection aggregate metric, ROI aggregate metrics, salary one, right? Salary consideration to go along with the salary adjustment, a projection filter, filtering out some of the lowest projected lineups in their set. This is all good, right? They're boosting their salary floor, right? I mean, their projection floor. Without this, maybe they would have been closer to 98, right? Maybe they would have been a little too low or like on the low end, but it seems like that projection filter probably helped them to get into that 100 range. They're, sorting their contests appropriately, spreading out the lineups, using autofill, using uniques. This looks like a really good process, right? And that's kind of what you expect to see from like a top sim ROI player. So I really like these lineups. Thought a lot of good things went into them. If you're trying to obviously like take your lineups to the next level, consider that late swap. That's like about the only thing I could see here that I would, encourage you to do differently. But other than that, really, really solid review. All right. Good one to get us started. Next up, we are going to be switching from MLB over to NBA. And we're going to go to the 428 2-game NBA main slate on DraftKings. And we're going to review JB's lineups from that slate. So let's get over there. You know what? It's like this. Almost got it up. All right. I think we're good. All right. Let's bring this up. Cool. So 428 NBA 2-game main slate here. Going to start in the contest tab as usual. All right. First thing up, contest selection, pretty good, right? I don't mind taking like some shots in the big one here. Starting from the ground up, right? 20 maxes. The only thing I would say is like mix in some of those lower dollar single entries and 3 maxes too. So that would probably be good. Even if you put, 4 lineups in the $20, that's fine. But seems like, hey, you got to go for those top prizes. I get it. And then, mixing in some of our stuff as well. So nice balance here. I think it's totally fine to play this way. Let's see. Let's review the 150 lineups. Biggest contest, most entries, makes the most sense to me. Okay, let's go over to users, 150, sim ROI. All right, so JB, 7.5% sim ROI. Seems, nice to be positive for sure. Had a good actual ROI. Highest ROI, somewhere above 15-ish%. So not too far off here, I would say. I don't think they're very far off. What do we see, right? We see 49.7 average salary. We see 16 average dupes. And then we see a sim average score of 256.2. So see, this is an interesting, kind of analysis where you see that, it's a 2-game slate and duplication is actually very important on a classic slate, right? A lot of double-digit duplication, 10, 15, 18, 9, 11, 10, 12, 20, right? So a bunch of big numbers here. This is probably going to play closer to showdown where you got to kind of find a balance between duplication and projection. So for instance, right, top sim ROIer here has 8 average dupes, 258.1 sim average score. That's about half the dupes, 2 extra points of sim average score, right? We see another high sim ROIer at like 20%, similar sim average score, but lower dupes, right? So JB's like not too far off here. We just need to either 1, raise sim average score, or 2, lower dupes like super slightly. So that's not going to be too hard. A couple different ways you could attack that. Looks like they did late swap their lineup, so that's good, right? The swap 4 was done about 12 minutes prior to the second game on the slate starting. So re-optimizing their lineups based on how the first one has played out to that point. Very, very good thing to do. Let's see. So a number of different builds run, kind of interesting. So we see like 8 minutes before the slate, 15 minutes before the slate, 9 minutes before the slate, 3 minutes before the slate. I'm going to go with this build 4 because I'm going to assume that the one closest to the games starting would probably be the best one to look at. So I'm going to look at this one. What do we see? Min salary 49K, max salary 50K, no filters or rules. Let's just grab this. Exposures. How many contests do they have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not sure if they did like different builds for different contests or not. I'm not 100% sure. Because it looks like we're only looking. What are we looking at? No, all the contests are chosen. Okay. No min or max exposures in all. Nothing in any individual columns that I see. They were very particular with stacks, which is like kind of interesting here. Let's go by pool exposure. So limited stacks to 3 3-2s, 4 3s, 3 2-2s, 3 3s, 2 2s. Okay, 3 stacks, 2 stacks. So I've talked about this in the past. I don't love this, and the main reason is like maybe I just like don't understand it, and that could be like me, but like I've never understood why people would be like okay with like a 2-2, but not like a 2-2-2 or like a 2-2-2-2, right? Like why are you okay with 2-2 stacks but not 3-2 stacks or not 4-2 stacks, right? So like some of those things like kind of confuse me. If you're just like, hey, I don't want to play 4 players from a team, like okay, if you came in here and you're just like, hey, I got rid of all the 4 stacks and I'm only playing 3 stacks or below. Like, great, got it. Like, I understand that, right? But like when somebody's like, okay, I'm down for a 4-3, but I'm not down for a 4-2-2, but I am down for a 2-2 without the 4, this part gets like a little confusing to me. And I think that, maybe people are like looking at information where it's like, oh, these stack types like are the most common winners for like this or that. I don't like love stuff like that. And you got to remember that the SaberSim is going to build these stack types at the rate that they're good in the sim. And if you are playing a contest that is, I'm assuming like, hey, wants to win the 100K the most, right? If you're playing a contest that has 20,000 entries, right? You're looking for that one lineup out of 20,000. And I'm like almost positive all of these stack types, even 1%, right, is a way higher expectancy than, you winning like that like 1 out of, 20,000, right? Like even if you were maxing that contest, you come in here and we look at like 150 divided by 20,588. Did I do that right? 5. Okay, so like if you're maxing the contest, you win this 1 out of 137 times, right? That is less than 1% of the time. So like if you have this like 4 stack, even like a 4-4 coming up, 1% of the time in the Sims, it might still be worth playing 1 or 2 lineups that have a 4-4, just because like the rate that is coming up in the sim is still higher than like your raw chance of winning. And that's if you're maxing, right? And he's only entering 5 lineups in this contest. So then it gets like a little bit, even more of like a long shot. I've seen some interesting stuff with this recently. I've seen top ROIers being willing to play 2 stacks, being willing to play 3 stacks, like no more than 2 stacks, no more than 3 stacks in MLB lineups, right? And like now we're talking about NBA. So my opinion is I would probably leave all of these selected. If you don't want to play 5 stacks or more, okay, leave those unchecked. But like if you're going to play 4s, play all the 4s. If you're going to play 3s, play all the 3s. If you're going to play 2s, play all the 2s. That is my opinion. I am happy to, have a further discussion with somebody about that who's kind of coming at it from this angle, because I would love to hear, somebody's argument for or reasoning, not even an argument, it doesn't need to be like a debate. It just, a discussion really, or just like understanding, why play a 3-2-2 but not a 3-2. I'd love to hear somebody explain that to me. So anybody wants to, hit me up in Discord. All right. Aside from that, what do we got? We got some action here in the team stacks. Interesting. Limiting Houston 4 stacks, limiting Houston 3 stacks, limiting Houston 2 stacks. Seems to just be under on Houston. That's fine. If you want to do like some risk management, if you don't like this team, another thing you could do, right, is you could change their team total. You just go to all stacks, you go to projected points, just drop those projected points. You know what I mean? Might lead to you getting less of them, without you having to cap, or you could just continue to cap, but saw the lineup exposure was a little bit different here. So maybe you had trouble with it. Dropping projected points could be a way of doing that as well. So you can come in here, change this number, and then go and change projection to, it'll say SaberSim adjusted after you've made that team total adjustment. So that's another thing I would consider. We were in autofill. So autofill. Okay, so here's a quick thing. It looks like they went and manually changed these all to match. Okay. By default, it'll just look like this. As long as this master sorting metric in the top right is set to target contest ROI, target contest means that it is looking at the name of the contest and matching the ROI that goes for that contest. So what you did of coming in here and changing all of these, the builder is already actually doing that with target ROI. So you can basically just skip that step, right? You don't need to do that. All right. So that's good. Using one unique, it's fine. Using rank fill, if you're using rank fill, it doesn't matter what order the contest ran. Again, that's fine. Kind of interesting. They're looking at an average ROI for every contest. That's fine if you want to like look like contest by contest across the board, see how you're doing. I think that's totally fine. Tons of aggregate metrics. Totally up to you what you want to look at, what's important to you. So just customize those as needed. But biggest things I would consider here, right? So 7.5 sim ROI, we're trying to get into like the double digit range, 10, 15 would be good. I would reconsider the stack exposures. Other than that, I don't think you're doing a lot wrong here. We did need to account for duplication or projection. I would probably do both, I would consider, what would I do? I would probably start with a sum ownership filter, just like filtering out the highest 10% of sum owned lineups, see how that plays. And then you could be more aggressive with it, right? You could go up to the highest 20% sum owned lineups and get rid of those. From there, right, if you need to go further, you could start to mess around with geomean and use a geomean custom metric and filter. I wouldn't go so far as to lower max salary. I don't think you need to do that. But I would definitely start with the ownership one, right? So first thing you do, come in here, set up an ownership filter, say, show me lineups with ownership less than X. And then if that's not working, then, add a second filter and then create a custom metric for ownership geomean, right? Okay, I'm going to set up a geomean value filter. And then when I have the custom metric set up, I'm going to filter by that, come in here, set up a geomean one. We were talking about NBA Showdown, and this is playing really similar to Showdown from what we can tell. So check that segment out. But geomean less than X, right? Okay, well, I'm doing two things for ownership. Maybe that's going to drive down my projection. So then I'm going to set up a projection one for projection greater than X, right? I'm going to try and counterbalance the effects of the ownership, right? We're trying to find like that happy middle, that happy medium, right? So that is the progression I would take. I wouldn't go straight to doing all three. I think you might be okay to start with some ownership, filtering out like 10-ish% of your lineups. Okay. From there, go to 20% of your lineups. Okay. From there, go to geomean. Okay. From there, go add your projection, right? For projections dropping, like, use those things. You just want to do enough to your lineups. You don't want to do too much, right? So that's why I kind of recommend going like step by step, walking through them one at a time, trying to figure out which one, at what point you're getting the impact that you need. Because 4 might be overkill, right? 4 different things going on. You might be okay with 3, you might be okay with 2. So duplication and counting for duplication, reconsidering stack types you're using. Those are the two big things I would talk about. I would consider here to try and help boost that sim ROI and help your overall success. All right. Good one there. Definitely some interesting stuff on these playoff NBA 2-game slates. We are actually going to look at the same slate, but for a different user here. So that's always fun. Get to kind of compare especially if they're playing the same contest. So this one's going to be for Ron. This one's going to be for, it's actually going to be for FanDuel though. Okay, so we're going to hop over to the FanDuel streets. Okay, hold on. Just bringing this up. All right, 28th. Try again. Let's go to FanDuel. Okay. All right. So we got this build up here. One quick thing. And we normally start in the contest tab. It doesn't look like they uploaded their entry file. To upload your file, right? Go to the slate. Click this green upload entries. Click this download template file from FanDuel. It will take you to the FanDuel upcoming page. From there, you have to click the CSV edit button and then download your file. For a tutorial on how to do that, go to our help section in this menu. Go to help and then go to tutorials. Go to this how to enter your lineups into your contest on desktop, or if you're using like mobile, iPad, something like that, check out this how to enter your lineups into your contest on the mobile/phone. Each of these tutorials has a FanDuel specific section of it where you can watch how to do it for FanDuel specifically, because FanDuel is a little bit different. So use those tutorials to figure out which one of those you want to, you need to use to figure out the right sequence. That will just make filling your lineups and submitting them a lot easier. All right. So big things here, right? So two things I noticed. Number one, there's no swap build, which might be okay in the playoffs. Lineups in the playoffs are way more likely to come in as expected than to have big projection changes. So as long as the lineups are coming in as expected, you don't need to worry too much, right? Like if you're on starter and you see like, hey, before the game starts, okay, Clippers lineup gets released, no different from expected. Denver lineup gets released, no different from expected. If you see that, you do not need to swap. That is way more common this time of year. So if that's the reason you didn't swap, then okay, totally good. No worries. I would just check, set, there's a big 2.5 hour window between these games. I do this. I just set an alarm on my phone. I'm like, hey, come and check this 20 minutes before the game starts. See what the lineups are. Are we good? Okay, cool. I'm going to, go about the rest of my day. Right. So I would do that, just check to make sure everything's good. Other big thing here. And again, this might not be as important, but kind of same line of thinking. These lineups were built 90 minutes prior to the game starting. Now that is okay, as long as the starting lineups for the first game on the slate come in as expected, right? So you just want to make sure that projections aren't changing a bunch between you building your set of lineups and the beginning of the game starting, right? So like if you built your lineups 90 minutes before, but then you come in here and before the game starts, you see that there's like, hey, MPJ came down almost like 1.5 points. Some of these other guys moved around a little bit. I would probably consider rebuilding my lineups at that point. I don't think you need to do it every time, right? Like, okay, Asar Thompson moved by 0.5. It's kind of subjective. For me, adjustments of like plus or minus 1 point are things I normally do want to account for. So that's why I would like rebuild for the MPJ example. But just keep those things in mind. Always good to verify starters. Always good to see if any projections moved, and then you can just kind of make a call as to whether or not you think you should change that, or change those lineups, rebuild the lineups to account for that information, etc. All right, so we'll review this build 3. Okay. Okay, so this is actually interesting. So they're using optimizer mode, right? Now, we are not advocates of using optimizer mode for GPPs. Again, I don't know what you were playing, so it's hard to say. If you were playing cash games, right, then this would be fine. This would be the way to do it. But if you were playing tournaments, right, we're like GPPs, big prizes to first, all those type of contests, we would recommend staying in sim mode, right? Sim mode is designed to help you build lineups with high upside because, average scores are not winning GPPs, like top 1% outcomes, top 0.1, 0.01, right? You need to get really high up in those contests to get to the top. And, that is really what is winning GPPs, right? So you want to be aware of those things. This is kind of interesting. It looks like Darius Garland was ruled out here and they had 3 lineups with him in. It's like this would have been a perfect reason to rebuild your lineups because this player got ruled out, right? So you wouldn't have wanted to have any lineups with him in. So if I'm recommending anything, I'm going to assume you're playing GPPs. I would switch to sim mode. Okay. We like sim mode a lot better for GPPs. I think leaving your minimax salary is fine. Let's see, rule. This is probably okay. We saw that duplication was important in 2-game slates. If you want to use a geomean rule, I think that's totally fine. If you have contests or no, I think Ron's on starter. So using Saber Score, it's probably just something from my screen. Using Saber Score, I think that's right. Using unique rank, if you're building 20 lineups, it won't matter. Using 4 uniques, probably fine. Let's see, move some things around. No min or max exposures. Limiting stack types to 3-3-2s, 4-3s, 4-4s. We just talked about this on the last person. I don't know why this is so popular. Maybe someone can enlighten me. But again, same reason. I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, but just, kind of same idea of like if you're going to allow for 1-4, allow for all 4s. If you're going to allow for 3s, allow for all 3s. You don't want to allow 2s, then like that's fine. It's up to you. All right. Lineups. That's about it that I see here, right? Sometimes like small changes can go a long way. I would really start with using sim mode. I would set uniques after the build, right? You're going to have 500 lineups. You need 20. You're going to have plenty of extra lineups to sift through to, use for uniques if like that's the number that you want to use. Keep using Saber Score. Those are the biggest changes I would start with. Second thing, right, is building after lineups update. Cleveland comes out here and Garland gets ruled out. That's going to massively change exposures for everyone on the team, really. Like you didn't end up with any Ty Jerome. He ended up being like a really good piece of like this team after Garland gets ruled out because he gets like a lot of additional playing time. Sam Merrill ends up starting in place of Garland, so just building, I would say to build your final set of lineups after the teams whose games are at slate lock have check marks. Okay. Say that again. Build your lineups after the teams at lock have check marks. That way you get the latest and greatest projection updates, use sim mode, and then apply your uniques after the build. Okay. So those would be the things that I would be starting off with. So make those adjustments. Let me know how they go, and we can always circle back. All right. Good stuff. Keeping it rolling here. Over halfway now, but we still got 2 more to go. Next one's going to be David. And we're going to be looking at the May 1st MLB main slate. So that would be from yesterday. Yep, baseball. Okay, yesterday's main slate was early. It was that early slate. All right. Got this coming up now. All right, let's get this up on the screen. All right, cool. So going to start in the contest tab. What do we see, right? 5 lineups in the solo shot, 5 lineups in the mini max. This is totally cool, right? Let's look at the mini max, a little bit bigger contest. And go over to lineups. Go over to users. We're going to look at people who entered greater than or equal to 5 lineups. And we're going to reset these columns. Sort by sim ROI. So interesting. I didn't see their contest name. Their username wasn't up at the top like it usually is. So I'm not 100% sure why that is. But they would have entered 5 lineups. See if we can just get lucky and find them. Or something that resembles their name. 5, 5, 5, 5. Let's do this a different way. Okay, show me exactly 5. All right. Could be this user, not sure. But I don't know. I don't know what their username is. If they're here, they can let me know, please. It's hard to guess here. I don't have like a clear understanding, unfortunately. But what we do know is that they entered 5 lineups, and every user who entered 5 lineups or less, or who entered exactly 5 lineups. Okay, David wins 1960. Why don't I see them? Thank you for that. Okay, so let's go back to greater than or equal to 5. And then let's just search it. David. That's so weird. Let's try the solo shot. I don't know why, but let's try the solo shot. That it's like they're not even in here. This is so weird. All right. I'm not sure why I don't see them in the post contest sim. David, since you're here, I'm not sure a couple things. One, I don't know why I don't see you, but then 2, I don't see any builds here. So Did you yeah, David said I don't exist. Did you hand build lineups for this, or did you build in SaberSim? How did you build for this slate? I'm like super curious. Did you like delete the builds after you did them, or what'd you do? I'm just waiting for David to respond. Give him a second. Thanks, everybody. Actually, let's take this back real quick. No, it looks right in their files here. So confused. I'm waiting for a couple details from David. Hopefully, David's still watching. They can let us know. But not seeing any builds is also particularly strange. Well, while we wait for David to have a little dialogue here, we can move on. We do have one other person here, so we will circle back on David when we hear back. And in the meantime, we'll move on to Junk Dog. We're going to be looking at yesterday's NBA slate as well. All right, David said, move on. I'll get back. Yeah, I'll circle back with you in Discord too. We could chat there, and then even if you're like, hey, instead of yesterday, like review today, I could probably do something for you over the weekend and just get you a quick review, and we can go from there. So maybe something wrong with that slate in particular, but either way, we'll get your review. You know, I'm not going to make you wait another week to get reviewed, so we'll figure it out. All right. So moving on here to Junk Dog. It's going to be yesterday's NBA 2-game slate. All right, bring this up. Quick check. Good. Okay, so contest tab as usual. Are these no, regular lineups? All right, so what do we see? Good contest selection. Everything low stakes, single entries, 3 maxes, less than the max and the mini max. Right. Good stuff here. Let's review the quarter jukebox. This one has 20 entries. All right. Lineups built 26 minutes prior to slate starting. I'm pretty sure these lineups got out early, so this looks about right. Go over to users. Okay. We want to look at people who maxed it. Sort by sim ROI. All right. So what do we see? 23% sim ROI. This is a good number. Highest in the contest, like somewhere over 25%, and they're literally right on the cusp of that. So I wouldn't be worried about it. Very high average salary, 49.9, big number. Kind of interesting. 12 average dupes, 265 sim average score. Definitely on the lower dupe end, right? We see like 17, 21, 41, 23, couple in the similar range. We see a 10, we see a 7, 56, right? So a lot of like big dupes, they're kind of on the lower side. Again, it's okay to have lower sim average score as long as that comes along with a lower average dupes as well, right? And then these other users, right? 41 average dupes, 270 sim average score. So, okay, they're going up in both directions, right? That's kind of the right thing to do. So I think their underlying metrics here all look really good. Let's go to their pre-slate build. They did run a late swap, right? So re-optimizing those lineups to take advantage of that, of, you know, understanding what happened in the first game. First game is probably over, right? Anytime you see a split like this, and you're on Ultimate and you have access to the live data, I would definitely run a late swap just because the game is basically over. And, you know, unless they're in overtime or something, you know everything that happened in that game. So you get to use that actual fantasy points and re-optimize from there. Seemed to work out fine, the adjustment here. 2 filters, minutes and projection. So like, hey, the guy's under 5, I don't even want to see him. And then we also want to be careful with the minutes too, right? So I like that, just a couple guardrails, trying to be safe, trying to play players that are more likely to get in the game. That seems totally cool. Let's reset these. Okay, where's exposure? All right. A couple risk management things to Duran and to Tobias Harris. Notice these max exposures are 2x their ownership. I think that's totally cool. Like, hey, I just want to be 2x the field max, no more. I like that. They did those in the all tab, which is the right thing to do. Nothing in these individual ones. Wanted to get to a little bit of Denver. I think that's okay. They're like, hey, maybe they're getting 0 and they're like, I at least want to be like half my pool exposure on Denver. I think that's fine as well, right? Just kind of nudging the builder in a direction, not being super, super aggressive with it. See, this makes a little like this is kind of what I've been talking about, guys, where it's like, okay, they got rid of 7 stacks, got rid of 6s, got rid of 5s. They're like, I don't want to play 5 stacks or better. Okay, I understand that. And then now all the 4 stacks are chosen and below. Like, seems good, So I like this. This looks good. All right. Used autofill, used unique rank, used ROI, sorted by prize pool, used uniques, 3 filters, geo mean, positive ROI, and NBA projection floor. Okay, so see, this is why their lineups are on the lower end of the dupe side, right? We saw where their lineups were on that spectrum, like, kind of coming in on the lower dupe side. Well, this is exactly why, like they're already accounting for it. So this is good, right? When we do win, we want to try and get as much of first place prize as possible. So it is totally a good idea to go like the route that they're going. You could go the higher dupe route, higher projection route, but you basically need to end up winning more, and winning's hard. So this way, I like this route. So this is exactly why we saw those metrics, and it's working out for them, right? So all in all, I think they're doing a lot of right things here. I don't think I had any recommendations on anything to change here. And, that's why they're at 23% sim ROI. That's why they're right on the cusp of, being like right in that top edge. Eric did say that he was trying to be more aggressive with some filters and salary. That's why we see like the high 49.6 here. And I think that's good. It sounds like these are ideas that he got from studying other high sim ROIers in his contest. So he said, seems to be a trend I've noticed in flashback from some of the top ROIers. So doing their homework and applying those things into their process, and it seems to be working, right? So I like this. I think this is all really good stuff. I would recommend to keep doing it. But all right, that was our last person. I'm going to circle back with David and we'll get David squared away. But other than that, hope everyone enjoyed their reviews. Reminder, if you guys ever want to get signed up for a show, 2 ways to do so. Email us, support@sabersim.com, or post in the office hours channel. Let me know date, sport, site, and slate. Say, hey, Andrew, can you review my MLB main slate builds on DraftKings from Friday, May 2nd? You do that, I'll get you added to the next show, which is on Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern. All right. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Good luck today in all your contests. I'll see you tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. Eastern for office hours. Until then, everybody, take care. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.